Hey team, this is week 16 on how to improve your drawing. So this month is fruit, and today we're going to look at a blackberry. Now, this is really going to test your drawing skills because it's a very organic shape. We have lots of individual little nubbins and we need to get them in the right place, add shading, make each little pocket look 3D, and then hopefully it kind of works. Now, it is worth pausing this video at each stage and kind of working on your own until you're ready to move on. So I'd recommend maybe watch the video a bit first, pause it when you do your own, and then hopefully everything will come together and you're like, holy shit, I drew a very difficult thing and I'm fucking proud of it. So off we go, grab your pencils and let's get started. This is going to be the biggest blackberry you have ever seen. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do, because this is a slightly abstract shape, is we're going to use rectangles to try and define the shape. So what I'm thinking about here is where is the widest, the highest, and the lowest point of the blackberry. And once I've kind of figured that out, I can start to look at the negative space and I can start to think about all those little bubbles that are on the blackberry, because let's face it, when you look at this, it's like, oh my god, where do I start? There's so much going on. So what we want to do is simplify the shape as much as possible. And I usually like to do this sort of method when there is a complicated shape and I just focus on the outside. I don't stress too much on the middle. Obviously, once I've got the outside, I can then start to work my way on the inside. I've made loads of bumps as if it's a hill, and from there I can kind of carve in the edges and start to think about those nubbins in the middle. Sorry, I love the word nubbins. So there's two things to think about when you're working inside here. There is the nubbin itself, but there's also the black shadow around it. So I kind of like to treat these as a shape in themselves, and you'll see that it's almost like I'm drawing a random shape in amongst random shapes. So that is kind of what I'm going for, and I'm treating each nobule as a random shape. I honestly don't know what they're called. Little pockets or seeds? I'm not sure. Hopefully the visuals will kind of make more sense than my words, but you're treating each little juicy bit as its own shape, and you're thinking about the black shadow as its own shape as well. And this is going to make it way easier to draw and to think about the next stages. So work your way around this, and it's worth spending a bit of time on this, because once this is done, the hardest part is done. Trust me, this is the hardest part. And to be honest, if it's not perfect, it's really not the end of the world, because you have a second chance when you get to the shading, and probably a third chance as well. So it's nature, isn't it? It's not perfect. We can give ourselves a break and just kind of get these shapes looking roughly like what I have. Anyway, once you've done that, you want to then look at your foliage. So is there any green bits on the top? Is there a stem? And you just want to pop those in as well, with any like light and dark differentiations, differences. Right. When you're ready, the next part is shading in that black space. So do you remember I just spoke about trying to draw the black space as its own shape? Well, now is the time to shade this in with your 8B. So this is showing us that the dark spaces are deep crevices, even though we know it's not that deep. It's a blackberry. Come on, it's going to be like a millimeter deep maximum. But the thing is, it still creates this dark shadow. So the best thing to do is to shade this in nice and dark, and that's going to start to show your little nubbins coming forward. And already you're starting to see this familiar shape of a blackberry. So we're recognizing it just by having white and very, very dark. So our brain starts to acknowledge what's going on, and it's starting to see, okay, this is coming together. Let's trust the process. We trust China, hopefully. So you might want to pause the video at this point just to make sure you're up to date and then you're ready for the next part, because there's no way anyone could have done this in 3 minutes. Right. When you're ready, and hopefully you've spent some time on that dark bit, you're just going to shade the nobules in a very light grey. So I'm just using it's probably my 2B or my 3B to be honest, but a very light pencil. I'm trying not to go too dark, and I'm just getting rid of all the white bits, because if you look at the blackberry, even though there's shiny bit, there's actually no white bits at all. So let's start to knock off that white. And again, it just helps with pushing that Blackberry forward and making it look a little bit more realistic. So it's starting to look better. Now, I think this is a good point to just remove that rectangle just to kind of get rid of any construction lines that we don't want, and then we can start working into the detail. So what we've done to start is we simplified the shape, we made a rectangle, then we drew the shapes of the individual pieces, we shaded in the shadows, and now we are looking at the medium dark bits in the Blackberry itself. So I'm just going to show an outlined version of the medium dark bit so you can see what I mean. And you're going to shade this in a medium to dark grey because we're building up on the lightest shade. The lightest shade was the flat layer that we just did underneath. We're building up that 3D effect and we're starting to push in the details. And you can start to see just in my drawing that by adding this extra layer of contrast, it's working on the Blackberry, is making things look a little bit more detailed. And you can see on a couple of them at the bottom, I've just thought, fuck it, just go for it. And, it still needs a bit of work, to be honest, even on those. So this stage is just trying to add the medium layer of darkness. So not worrying too much about adding the fine detail. We're going to go back and add the darkest bits in these nubbins afterwards. But there might be some edges where at this point you think, okay, I want to add that gradient at least, and then I'm going to add the medium darkness. But each little section is different, so try and keep looking at the reference picture because every shape is different. Every shape relates to the direction of the light, and if we're not following the shapes that we can see, then our eyes will know straight away that it's not realistic. So it is important to keep looking at the reference picture. And hopefully you're going to see some results very, very quickly. So once you've done your medium greys, this is when we go back with our dark pencil and we start to look at those darker pockets on the nubbins. So just look at the edges of them. Are the edges soft or are they hard? And it will vary depending on which section you're looking at. But this is where the finer detail comes into place. We do have another section after this, but all I want you to think about is the the pools of darkness on the Blackberry, and then afterwards we get to put in those tiny little seed ends, which will be very, very easy to do. But just one more layer on your Blackberry, and this is going to be a real game changer for how it looks. So we are nearly there. You can see already on mine the effect that it's taken, especially down at the bottom. You can see a little glow, little dark bit, and a big pocket of light. So it's because I keep looking at the reference picture. I'm seeing light and darker shapes rather than areas on a Blackberry. So hopefully yours will look the same as well. And if not, just give it a little bit more time. These things do take time, so it is worth pausing the video, going back to it, keep looking at mine, look at the picture, and all will work. Now, the final bit to do, obviously, is the stem and the leaves, and hopefully you can see light and dark and apply that fairly easily. And then the last thing you want to do is to add these little speckles of, I don't know what they are, seeds or something. But that basically brings it all together. Now, I always like to go over mine with a fine toothbrush or a fine pencil in this case, and just see if there's anything that I've missed, any details I can add, and anything to make this look better. So feel free to spend a bit of extra time on yours, bringing all the shading together, and then hopefully you should have one juicy, tasty Blackberry.